Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Book Nook. I'm Sin. Today, we're going to be talking about a book called Orwell's Roses by Rebecca Solnit. I don't know why I have to sing sometimes when I announce books, but here we are. So, this book, really good. I first heard of it from watching one of Ariel Bissett's videos, and it totally piqued my interest and sounded like something I would like to read. So I was at the library and I just saw it there, so I grabbed it and I read it, and it was really fantastic. There it is. That's just so I don't have to keep holding it up and put it up there. So this book, the author, it's a nonfiction book, and the author, she ended up going to the cottage where Orwell had spent a chunk of his life, where he had planted fruit trees and flowers and roses, and she wanted to go there and see after all these years if these trees and plants were still blooming. Well, the fruit trees were gone, but his roses were still there after several years. And there was a essay of his that she read that kind of talked about growth and planting trees and flowers, and kind of like it says in the book, it said, if war had an opposite, gardens might sometimes be it. And people have found a particular peace in forests, meadows, parks, and gardens. And that was something that Orwell had written, and that really kind of spoke with her. And so she went there just to see the place, and she ended up writing a book basically about Orwell's life, about roses, the production of roses, the symbolism of them, what they mean, kind of just like how a garden is a metaphor for life, and just all these different neat themes that tie in. And it gets into like Orwell's thoughts on politics and his political standing, and like his background from where he came up in. And it's just a really great read. And it kind of like tells the story of what all led up to him writing the book 1984, which is his like piece de resistance, you know? So, this was a great book. I really enjoyed it. It's not a tough read, and it's not an easy read. I found it really enjoyable. I spent most of the time like laying in bed reading it. It took me probably about a week to get through it, I would say. It talks about how like Orwell really enjoyed gardening, and how he thought that planting trees and flowers is a gift, and how that it cannot weigh some of the, I guess, the terrible things that people do in their lives, you know, planting a forest, even though it doesn't really outweigh people being shitty humans, but it gives back a little bit with what trees symbolize, what they do for the earth, the carbon they sequester, the oxygen that they help produce, you know, all that stuff. So it's a fascinating read. It was really enjoyable. I'm a big fan of nonfiction books, so there will probably be a few of them on this channel that I will talk about. And it gets into like with symbolism of the roses, how the different occasions they're used for, how they're used for so many different occasions. They're used for love, they're used for funerals. So they're used for, you know, joy, loss, sorrow, hope, victory, pleasure, like all this different symbolism. And it's just really neat to get into. Like also how like red rose petals symbolize love, or they can symbolize blood, like bloodshed. Just really cool stuff. And then how there's all these different songs about roses and poems and books, and you see it as a reoccurring theme in art, and the perfumes that have been made, and just all this stuff. It's pretty fascinating. It's just things I'd never really thought about that touched a note with me, and I really enjoyed it. And so, and then it talks about too how like flowering plants, they are crucial to our survival, you know, for food, and all the plants that produce food for us, and then that also feed the animals, and just that whole cycle of all that stuff. And I think this was something Orwell said, or if it's not, the author said that. So I liked what it said. It says, even as an ornament, flowers represent life itself, as fertility, mortality, transience, extravagance, and as such they enter our art, rites, and language. And I thought that was kind of eloquent and beautiful way to frame it and say it. So the cottage that Rebecca Solnit went to was in Wallington, and that was where Orwell, he went to live April 2nd in 1936, and he lived there for quite a time. And it talks about that, and gets into his life as being a journalist, an essayist, an author. He was born in northern India. His father left after several years, and he was raised by his mother. And it talks about his life growing up and then up until he died. Yeah, it was a really interesting stuff. I probably never would have read, and I probably wouldn't have picked this book up if I hadn't seen it on Ariel Bissett's channel. So thank you, Ariel. Yeah. Overall, if you're looking for something a little different that's nonfiction, that is a good read. It's see how many pages this is. It's a lot of reference stuff in the back. It is okay, so it's under 300. It's 272, which is not too bad. It's not too bad. What is this? My bookmark falling out. That's also invisible. Green screen. Okay. So yeah, here, let's read you just the flap of what it says, the synopsis. If perhaps I'm not giving the best one, maybe this will be better. So in the spring of 1936, a writer planted roses. So begins Rebecca Solnit's new book, a reflection on George Orwell's passionate gardening and the way that his involvement with plants, particularly flowers, illuminates his other commitments as a writer and anti-fascist, and on the intertwined politics of nature and power. Sparked by her unexpected encounter with the roses he reportedly planted in 1936, Solnit's account of this overlooked aspect of Orwell's life journeys through his writing and his actions, from going deep into the coal mines of England, fighting in the Spanish Civil War, critiquing Stalin when much of the international left still supported him, and then critiquing that left, to his analysis of the relationship between lies and authoritarianism. Though Solnit's celebrated ability to draw unexpected connection, through Solnit's celebrated ability to draw unexpected connections, readers are drawn onward from Orwell's own work as a writer and gardener to encounter photographer Tina Modati's roses and her politics, agriculture and illusion in the USSR of his time with forcing lemons to grow in impossibly cold conditions, Orwell's slave-owning ancestors in Jamaica Kincaid's examination of colonialism and imperialism in the flower garden, and the brutal rose industry in Colombia that supplies the American market. The book draws to a close with a rereading of 1984 that completes Solnit's portrait of a more hopeful Orwell, as well as offering a meditation of pleasure, beauty, and joy as acts of resistance. So when it says a rereading of 1984, the book's not in here. You don't reread it. It just gives a synopsis of thoughts and what it was about and this and that. I was a little confused when I read that flap myself. I was like, there's a whole rereading. I was like, it's the book in there. It's not. Maybe no one else thinks that, but that's what I thought. I was like, what? Okay. I was like, all right. I mean, I have the book 1984. It's on my bookshelf. I should reread it. It's been a million years since I read it. And with the climate of things nowadays, I probably should check into it. But anyways, thank you so much for joining me here in the Book Nook today as we talked about Orwell's Roses by Rebecca Solnit. Fantastic book. I really enjoyed it. If you like nonfiction and you like I guess everything I just mentioned, if that sounds interesting to you, it was really fantastic and I would highly recommend it. So until next time, have a good one. We'll see you later. Bye. Nope, that was a terrible bye.